And we're live. So welcome everybody to yet another live interview show with Become a Fearless Father. And today accompanied by Paresh. And thank you so much for taking the time to come on. I was highly impressed with your TED Talk, loved it. And when my friend Brandon Handley from Fatherhood for the Rest of Us said, "Have you interviewed this guy yet?" I'm like, "No. I know this guy. I'm going to introduce you to him and you can get him on the show." Oh, that's so awesome. So I love the community that we've built. And I love the fact that, now we can sit here from, well, not opposite ends of the complete ocean, but, we're still far away from each other. Yes. So thank you so much for taking the time.
My pleasure. Thank you so much, Klaas.
Let's hop right in. Okay. And after that, we'll start talking a little bit more about you. But first of all, the whole thing that I so much enjoyed, and for people that want to get some more information. Oh, I made a little mistake. Give me 1 second, people.
No worries.
All right. So people that want to know, you can get to this website right away and find out more information about what we're going to talk about today. It's going to be pretty much all the conversation is going to be about being a lifter. And I'm also going to talk to Paresh in regards to how can we help our children grow to become lifters, because I think that's a very, very important topic.
Absolutely.
So, Paresh, let's start with him. What is, so for everybody that's hopping in, let's start with the basics. What is a lifter?
A lifter is the new type of leader that any organization, school, company, nonprofit, or government needs or requires to flourish in today's times and the times moving forward as a planet.
Nice.
Lifters,
like
yeah.
And well, in this case, of course, the whole audience, everybody, or most of my audience are all entrepreneur dads, right? So they all have a business and they all have kids.
I feel for you. I feel for you. I feel for you so much that right before we got on here, part of the delay, Klaas, was now you're in Spain, right?
Yes, exactly.
Okay, so here I am in LA. It's January 2nd.
Uh-huh.
And you sent out, you reached out to me last year, like, hey, let's get together, let's have a conversation, and you sent me your calendar invite, and there was all these times at like 2 a.m, 3 a.m, and I was like, yep. Okay, he's probably overseas, one of my overseas hosts. So let's start this year off with a bang. And so 2:30 in the morning here in LA. So I get here and I set up and like, wow, what's this going to be like? And do you know what I just experienced? I just experienced
big earthquake.
Oh,
no kidding.
I was like, whoa, this is going to be a great interview. Yeah. I was just looking it up. Earthquake.
Wow.
Wow, things are shaking here at the interview with Klaas on becoming fearless. I'm like, okay, it's just an earthquake. Have no fear. Klaas is here.
Yeah, exactly. Starting off rocking the house already.
It was actually we felt it. It was really quite big. So anyway, so let's rock this year and the decade.
I really appreciate that. Thank you so much. So first of all, Paresh, share a little bit about the background about you, and then we'll take it from there. We talk a little bit more about,
Sure.
What's it look like and how to become one, etc.
Okay. My quick background is that I was born in India. Mm-hmm. And came to America when I was 18 months old. My dad and mom brought us over, and grew up in the D.C. area, Washington, D.C. area in the United States, and grew up here really very much Americanized. Wanted to fit in. I was one of the few, if only, Indian kids in school, etc. And so really caught sort of the American way of being, got into that wave of what it means to be an American kid in that sense. And just, super great. Had a lot of fun as a kid. Played music. You might see my guitars back there. Did drama, was very curious, really enjoyed science and math and art and drama and music and all of these things. and then ended up specializing when I went to college to be an aerospace engineer, and because I love problems and solving things and systematic mathematics and science and all of that. And I love that. And then I worked at one of the major aerospace companies here in the US. And then I got my MBA at Harvard Business School because I had not learned much about business as an engineer. And so that was a whole new world from, technical science love to this world that's sort of science, it's sort of art, it's about people and organizations and marketing and strategy. And I really, really enjoyed that. And so I became a strategist and a management consultant for many years. Really enjoyed, cracking the problems and really, applying a disciplined approach to systematically applying analytics, frameworks, concepts, theories, and thought leadership towards performance in my client companies. And I work with some of the greatest companies, and it was just a great experience to work in so many industries over a short period of time. And then my wife at the time, same wife, my wife finished her graduate school, and we went backpacking for a year. And that was one of the first fearless things that I did before we had children, because it was not a cool thing. And people are like, well, what are you going to say on your resume if you disappear for a year? Like, how are you going to explain yourself? And so that was a great process. We went to all India, Nepal, Thailand, Cambodia, Sumatra, Java, France, Ireland. We went all over the place. It was just wonderful. And in that process, I really discovered the entrepreneur in me. And so I decided to start my own company. And I've been starting companies over the years, and have had sort of a consultancy all along that keeps me fresh, keeps me on the cutting edge of ideas and thought leadership and in the thought stream of what's happening with business, and really being an advisor and helper. And then as my team and I would work with clients, work in different industries, we ended up having quite a gift of seeing what others don't see. And one of my business partners, his name is Rohit Bhargava, and he coined the term, how do you see in non-obvious ways? How do we have non-obvious thinking? And how do you apply non-obvious thinking to solve some of the biggest problems that we face in the world, as society, and as business? So I moved from like strategy, analytics, marketing, etc. Didn't move. I added to it innovation and creativity, because innovation became such an important thing in the world around solving our problems. So really felt in love with how do you get the most out of the creative process to come up with great products and services and experiences that delight customers, etc. And how do you make organizations work where talent is motivated and engaged. And, if you've been in a great culture, once you've been in a great culture, there's no going back. There's no going back. And so along that journey, then I really started getting into mindfulness and consciousness, meditation, yoga, and the whole self-help, spirituality world around how do we make this world a better place? How do we make this inner world and our outer world, our families, our communities, our companies have more peace, have more harmony, have more creativity, fulfillment, cooperation. And it's through that sort of internal process I went through that, I had this love for business. I had this love for innovation and what makes organizations tick. And but felt kind of gifted at my ability to help clients get the most out of their clients, out of their talent. And then there was this other world around, positivity and purpose and intentionality and, resolving things within ourselves that end up, creating conflict in our work, in our families, in our home. And so I really became a deep, deep, deep student because I was so passionate about this whole area of consciousness and conscious leadership. So that then was the next evolution. And it's through that process of sort of early on as a kid, very playful, very joyful, I'd play in the woods and, discover things and very curious and open, beginner's minded. Then went into sort of a more, what Brandon in fact called more of a linear thinking pattern, very pragmatic, analytical, systematic, numerical, scientific, very logical. And that served me very well as a, young student, and early in my career, because I tended to, do well in those realms. So that's sort of the groove I got into, was solving things very analytically, very practically as an entrepreneur and as a consultant. And then there was this other world that really relied much more on intuition, the heart, not thinking as much as feeling, around positivity, intention, and more of these invisible aspects. And those two worlds were kind of separate for a while. And over the past couple of years, we found a really beautiful interweaving of those two, because organizations are now realizing that conscious leadership, such as lifter leadership, is not just a nice to have. Oh, it's nice to have, positivity. It's nice to have harmony. In fact, it's essential to solve the big problems that lifter leadership is designed to solve, which we named 5 major problems that lifter leadership is designed to address. The first one is is motivating talent. 7 out of 10 workers today, Klaas, in the United States, I don't know what it is over in Europe, are what's classified as disengaged. 7 out of 10. They don't really, show up with their best or show up much at all. And so that creates huge issues of productivity, motivation for the other workers, workplace stress, etc. So lifter leadership solves for the need to attract, retain, and motivate talent. So that's not a nice to have, that's a must have. The second problem or opportunity is innovation. Lifters are the most innovative talent in your company. And there's not a CEO I work with that is not concerned about their need to be innovative and having a fear, speaking of fear, of being disrupted by some entrepreneur like you or like one of your listeners. So lifters are very innovative as well. So we've got motivated, innovative. The third issue in the world today is that people only trust about 53% of companies. They only trust 53% of organizations to do the right thing. And lifters create trust and loyalty with customers. They're your best ambassadors. So now we've got motivation, innovation, trust, and loyalty. The fourth one is workplace well-being. There's a lot of stress in the world today. There's anger. There's a lot of political, social media feeding, anxiety, stress, conflict between groups of people, whether it be political parties, whether it be men and women, whether it be older generations and the millennials. And there's all this tension that creates conflict between people. And that actually shows up as, workplace lack of productivity, absenteeism, presenteeism, etc. So lifters create an environment of workplace well-being and harmony just through their very being and how they show up, how we show up, because you are a lifter. And then the last problem / opportunity is around corporate social responsibility. Lifters in their DNA are about making a difference and leading with purpose, positivity and purpose, with integrity and authenticity, ends up creating company performance, which gets back to my original passion, which is how do you make companies awesome? How do you make teams really thrive and flourish? It's come full circle now, where it used to be, you use your left brain, logical thinking to drive your business. Then the whole area of sort of self-help, spirituality, consciousness, mindfulness, that started developing. And now we're seeing that the problems are best solved actually using these approaches of for instance, being a lifter or a lifter leader. So that's sort of the journey, is playful, creative, became more straight-laced, linear, then became much more amorphous around some of these more conceptual, metaphysical concepts. And now I'm finding that our clients are actually demanding it, because they're realizing this is what their people are working on in their own self-help work. It's what's working. And it's a systematic approach to make the world a better place by making our companies a better place, and our families and our communities as well.
Exactly. That's what I was going to ask right away, is that because you talk about full circle within the person within the business, but I'm assuming that those 7 out of 10 that go to work disengaged, how do they come home?
Oh my gosh. Yeah. Imagine, and we don't need to imagine, we've all been in those workplaces where you go there and it's a miserable experience, either because you've created it as, oh, I can't stand my work, I've got a crappy job. And so you've created it in your own occurrence of how you see your work environment. And if you see it as a place where you don't belong, or don't feel like you have any value, or your boss is a jerk, then that's really what is going to show up for you in your experience of it. And we've all been in those jobs, and they suck. They suck. I can't think of a better word. I had a job once. I won't describe which one it was. I won't tell you which one it was. But I was sharing an office early in my career with 2 other folks, and just whatever it was about it just didn't work for me. It wasn't. They were nice people, but we were like in this office, and they would keep the lights really low and dark in this office, and everyone had like their own little like green lamp, and they would play like this really soft like music in our office. And like, I like rock and roll, I like lights, I like being animated. And it was and the things they would talk about were just not interesting to me, and so I really felt it tapped my energy, and I ended up leaving that place. And so when you come home after a day where you don't feel you either gave your best, or were asked to give your best, or you're in a work environment that's not supportive of your talents, then you come home, and you can really it can take its toll as a father, as an entrepreneur, on you and on your family. I remember I actually quit this specific job that I'm telling you about. My friends thought I was crazy because it was like really high flying .com high flyer and all of that. And I actually quit 2 weeks after we had our first kid. And because I just couldn't stand being in that room anymore. It just wasn't me. It just, nothing about these people, it just didn't fit with what I was about. And my friends are like, "Are you crazy? You quit 2 weeks after you had your first kid? What are you gonna do?" And I'm like, "I'll figure it out." So yeah, it takes its toll on the family for sure.
No, absolutely. And so many of us are, we stay in it because we're so afraid of, the change, or, what's next, right? So what would be the first step for somebody that's, part of that 70% to start, discovering and becoming a lifter?
The first step, I would say, to be a lifter. Okay. And it'll help you discover the lifter within you, is really start becoming mindful of the inner talk within ourselves. And what we think, speak, and feel and act towards ends up becoming very much our experience. So, one of the things that we teach in our lifter leadership framework is we have 4 mind shifts, kind of like the 7 habits of highly effective people. We have the 4 lifter mind shifts. And so it's an issue of how do we shift our mind into this new way of thinking. And the first mind shift we call serve up, that the hunt is over. And by that, what we mean is the world is shifting very dramatically, very quickly, from hunting, going after the customer, targeting them, capturing them, to attracting. Law of attraction. You put it out there, and it's through your reputation, it's through your energetic presence. It's that you actually draw the right talent, the right clients, the right circumstances and situations to you, rather than have that sort of control-driven drive to go get that customer. So this serve up mind shift has this shift from hunting to attracting, from a scarcity mindset to one of abundance, which causes a lot of pain in families. We can come back to that one. The third one aspect of this serve up mind shift is the shift from like a command and control, power driven way of leading to one that's more of a cooperative co-creation model. And ultimately, it's about shifting from being transactional to being of service. That's why we call it serve up. Serve up is the first mind shift, and it's serve up, the hunt is over. So what people can do to begin to see the lifter within themselves is, first of all, realize the world has shifted from hunting to attracting, scarcity to abundance, command and control to cooperation. And many of the organizations we work in, or the business models, the leadership models we have been taught as entrepreneurs, whether it's men or women, dads or moms, really come from that sort of command and control type of leadership model that over the past many decades, many companies have employed, which is really built on more of like a militaristic, I'm the boss, here's the hierarchy, very, we fit you, Klaas, into this box, and that's your job, and you work hard and you save money, and then one day you can live your dream. And so that model is really being shifted out very quickly. And so we bring those models into our homes around being a leader as a parent as well. And so that model must shift as well to this lifter model, whether it's employed at work or in your home, and realizing that things like the command and control, I'm in charge, the authority, that doesn't work. Doesn't work anymore. It doesn't work in families. It doesn't work in business. It's really around cooperation, co-creating what we want to do as a family or as a company or as a team, and using very systematic methodologies to get there, which we teach and train our clients to do. It's not hard, and we can teach teams to do this fairly simply once you understand, the world has changed. So that's one way to realize this shift, and a very specific, tangible way of doing that is in seeing the lifter within and recognizing that that shift is one of our skills that we teach, is shifting from the 4 C's to the 4 P's. And what I mean by that, I know we got a lot of 4s here, so don't worry about all these 4s. But if you find yourself comparing, complaining, competing, or criticizing others or yourself, your children or yourself, just pause. It's not going to be helpful. It's not going to be helpful. And so that's one of the guides to really being happy, is really being mindful of comparing, competing, complaining, and criticizing others or yourself, because somewhere within there's something unresolved within ourselves. And rather shifting what we say to the 4 P's, which would be, if you're going to say something, then make it purposeful, positive, playful, or peaceful, or just don't say anything, quiet. And the more I practice what I teach, even in my own household, the more I realize it's true. And as humans, sometimes we fall into that and we get disappointed in ourselves. We feel, overly responsible, as particularly as fathers and entrepreneurs. There's this cognition that's not necessary that really weighs on us. So, depending on what your family situation is, your household is, it's like, I am the provider, and you know what, I need to be appreciated for all my hard work, and you should respect me, and that's sort of like that old model. It's that old model, and that inner voice really causes a lot of suffering for ourselves late at night, ourselves, in our families, and even in our businesses.
Absolutely. I'm glad during this conversation you flipped it from business to also the family and then back again. Because that's what an entrepreneur is all about. It's for me, it's just one. It's not, life is here. I got to make sure I don't have that much camera, and work is here, right? It's a complete blend, and that's what a lifter is all about, and that's what leadership is all about. Is a leadership you can implement that as being an entrepreneur, but definitely also as being a husband, being a man. And so I really appreciate that. And
no doubt. In fact, That's a great point that you raised there, Klaus, which again, it gets back to our cognitions. If we're looking at it from a mindfulness perspective, the way we see things is how the world often shows up for us. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
So for instance, I have many clients that I coach, executives who are like, hey, Paresh, help me be a high performance executive and help me, drive my team better and be more innovative, be more productive. And let's use these, toolkits of this lifter leadership work towards that. And I really, want some help with this work-life balance. If you can help me. And I said,
Mm-hmm.
you know what? I can't help you with work-life balance if that's the way you see it.
Mm-hmm.
Because if you see them as two things that are in opposition to one another, as two discrete domains, that one goes up, one goes down, and it's a balancing act, will fail, because that same person is showing up wherever you are. And so it's really, as you say, it's an interweave. How do you interweave your life as a dad, as an entrepreneur, as a business person, as a coach, as a trainer, whatever it might be? And how do you make it a blend where you flourish and the people around you flourish and your company flourishes? And by flourish, I mean, be successful financially, be happy, be healthy, have great relationships around you. That's flourishing. And you cannot do it with a mindset of work-life balance. I have so many clients who are like, hey, I need help with work-life balance. I'm like, no, we got to find a way to weave it together in a way where it's a seamless experience of you being the great you that you are and showing up for your children as you would showing up for your team, as you would showing up for yourself with compassion.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I love that. I'm really glad you mentioned also showing up. That's one of my big things right now that I'm saying as a quote, show up more, to shine more, shine again, lifting. Like for me, that's the same as being a lifter.
Shine,
right?
exactly. You're light. Yep.
Yep. So I love that. Man, we're at the end of our live interview already, even though I would love to continue for another hour talking to you. Hopefully we get a chance again in the future. For the people that are watching, listening to the replay, whatever it is, putting the website just quickly in there again so you can check it out. IamAlifter.com. You can also, the TED Talk is in there as well, right? So you can check it out.
TED Talk on there. Feel free to enjoy that. In fact, the TED Talk is more oriented towards youth. I was asked by TEDx Youth to speak to the youth because they felt this message, getting back to what you spoke to earlier, Klaus, that this lifter message is really what needs to be heard by the younger generation, especially. So I was invited to Hong Kong to give this talk, and I understand they actually streamed it to the children in their elementary, junior high, and high schools, because they felt these are the things that this young generation needs to learn, rather than learn the old things that we learned that we're now trying to unlearn around the command control, militaristic, scarcity, power-driven model. And so the younger generation gets it much faster than the older one. And so this whole idea of lifter leadership really resonates with younger people, with our children, especially with the younger millennials, XYZ. And it explains a lot of the conflict that we're having around, the criticism people have around younger workers. No, we're just leading them in the wrong way. If we lead them with lifter leadership, they will be totally motivated because we're aligning with what the needs of today's workers are. So yeah, check out I have a TED Talk. There's a couple of keynotes and podcasts there, and it's really about seeing this shift of being a lifter and realizing that it's about serving up, it's about service. And our second mind shift is listen up. It's really about how do we listen to our intuition, our inner self, listen to our teams, our children, and use that to inform our response rather than reaction. The third lifter mind shift is show up. And it's how do we take the different aspects of who we are and bring them to our work, to our families, to our entrepreneurial ventures. And show up is really a great space, particularly with our children, to go, how do we help our children find their yes and qualities? We call it ride your yes and. So, if you love music and you love science and you love, riding horseback, how might those different aspects, even as a child, start to be interwoven as an experience, and then even particularly as an entrepreneur, because lifters are able to show up with the different aspects of who they are rather than the very linear ways of, well, I'm analytical, I'm creative, I'm a salesperson. So that's that show up aspect. Then the fourth lifter mind shift we call act up, which is really about taking action. And I know you speak a lot about that in your talk. You know, how do you take action and define victory with your family and with your business, with your teams, in a way that drives you forward, has your passion and energy behind it, in terms of action. At the same time, you don't set such big goals that we're constantly, criticizing ourselves for not being with our kids enough, not being in with our business enough, not making enough calls. And so those four mind shifts, serve up, listen up, show up, act up, really become the bedrock of a new way of being, both as an entrepreneur or as a father or any type of leader. So I really appreciate your interest in this. And yeah, come to iamalifter.com and you can see some of the talks. And we do training, workshops, executive coaching, etc. And it's actually something that we found is really it's learnable, and it's been designed to be teachable, learnable at all levels. It's not just like some sort of training you'd have for the executive suite, which we often do. This is something any call center rep, any entrepreneur, any any barista, any level can learn to be a lifter, because lifters are not title based and they're not hierarchy based. A lifter can make the total difference in your company. Just the parking lot attendant who's a lifter, who greets people as they come into your work, can fundamentally shift the atmosphere for everyone's day that day. And so, I really appreciate all of your time and earthquakes and all.
Yeah, exactly.
Here to serve. And, to all your listeners out there, keep it up. Don't be so hard on yourself as fathers. And, one of the quotes I'll leave you with is one of my yoga teachers taught me is, fear can really destroy us. Fear can really create a lot of negative emotion as a father, especially. It's like, oh my God, I'm afraid I'm not doing a good job. I'm afraid we're not going to have money. I'm afraid this idea won't work. I'm afraid I don't have time with my children. And that fear can really be damaging. So I wouldn't say I'm a fearless father. When you invited me, I'm like, I'm not fearless, but how do we have less fear? And so the quote I'll leave you with, and with all of you with, is one of the quotes one of my yoga teachers gave to me, which really felt right, which is, fear is excitement without the breath. Fear is excitement without the breath. But when you breathe into fear, yeah, I'm excited about being a dad. I'm excited about, this new adventure with my children or with my business, etc. And breathing into it really diffuses a lot of the kind of dark aspects of fear that end up leading to us acting inappropriately. We'll take it out on our kids. We'll, criticize them or complain, hey, I told you so many times to do this, or just be more abrasive with them than is necessary. And so that's the number one thing I would say is, fear is excitement without the breath. So when you get fearful as a parent or as an entrepreneur, take 3 breaths. When there's an earthquake, take 3 breaths. The chandelier was actually shifting.
I'll be on taking breaths.
Exactly. And no, it's all good. And just keep lifting. Keep lifting. Be well. Appreciate you, Klaas.
Paresh, thank you very much. Everybody else, thank you so much. Paresh, give me 1 second after we end the broadcast, right? I got a couple of extra questions for you.
My pleasure.
In behind closed doors. Everybody, again, thank you so much. Make sure, you show some love to Paresh, and make sure you check it out. I watched the TED Talk, and it's definitely worth your time.
I know you're a lifter. Everyone's a lifter. You
Absolutely.
just got to find that lifter within you.
Absolutely. That's a great way to end it. All right, people. Take care. Bye-bye.